Prison planet, Gnosticism, and reincarnation trap ideas are gaining traction. These ideas seem to be growing more and more in popularity. They've been getting more popular since the 90s, and now we even have entire subreddits dedicated to these ideas. What are we to make of this? Are we awakening? Is this another trap set? Do we dare to be optimistic?
Yes, this realm is designed in a way. If you look at this place as an outside observer, you can see how it all connects to one purpose, loosh harvesting or something along those lines. If you look at near-death experience reports, most come off as some person being screwed with by an astral timeshare salesman. Then you have this dark control force that rules over our government, with high taxes, insane laws, and layers upon layers of brainwashing. If you dare question this realm with that mindset, you get this response.
It's all BS cope for people who haven't done a single lifetime focused on spiritual growth in the past 5,000 years to find a new way to be the victim of some higher power. Not surprising that it is popular here on X and on Reddit.
Which is a manipulation tactic to shame and guilt trip you, like the majority of human interactions. But I think there is a bigger picture than loosh harvesting. Because we lack so much information, combined with the flawed structure of the human mind, it's a miracle that this awareness got this far. The reason why I believe it to be true is I have a lot of experiences that would validate such an idea. I have woken up in a simulation tank, attacked by parasites, and got into higher awareness before. I don't know what's going on, but I think this realm might be a trap for many different beings, with different states of consciousness and origins, like they slowly groom you to be here, while the bigger self is distracted until it gets hoodwinked. I don't know if it is truly like this, though a lot of the prison planet type people are so stressed and self-ending that it is hard to organize. I'm like this too. I see some people fight and argue over nothing, which to me is dumb since we all share the same cell. It doesn't help that the New Age movement is full of greasy weasels, but I notice they like to idealize a victimhood complex. I think we can fight them with our imagination. I think imagination might make us rare, and they want this. That brings up many questions. But the Archons seem to need imagination awareness to manifest things. I don't know what is going on, but we need to go about this with clear minds and courage. Fear is what they ride on to screw with us.
I am very curious as to what will happen if these ideas become even more popular, though. Might even be the start of a new spiritual movement. If it does, then believers of this worldview will have their ideas tested as if they are right and all of this stuff does actually exist. Then those entities will have no choice but to reveal themselves if there is a mass movement against them. No. Conspiracies are becoming more and more mainstream. What happens if Gnosticism is mainstream?
Last time it happened, the Cathars were killed off in mass for hundreds of years and their history burned and wiped from public knowledge. I wonder what the simulation is trying to do. Because it has the power to stop this movement, but it lets it continue and foster. Some conspiracy circles are becoming big enough to profit from.
The prison got smarter. It'll just hijack any threatening movement now and neuter them in such a way that it doesn't pose a threat and/or it actively misguides people. Notice how modern meme Gnosticism is focused on pointing the finger at the universe, but lacks any personal accountability like discipline and training. This lays out a path to some potential future solutions. For example, the universe sucks. Don't worry. Take this brain chip, and we'll live in our own better world. I have this theory that our world isn't actually a real physical world, but an astral simulation disguised as one. While incarnated, the simulation makes us believe that we are in a material world with constant stress, or this realm is a copy of a real realm, but we got abducted, and now we are here. The reason why I think this, I don't know if it's real, nor have evidence, more a thought experiment. One, because the simulation likes to push out the idea that we are contained in a body, or a locked world, and the only way is to leave is death. Two, is our reality is fake, and can be manipulated by thought, which to me implies that it is a dream realm. Then you have the Mandela effect with the past and present changing. I have experienced realms that felt more real than ours, and why do we have so much control when they are the supposed prison wardens? Lastly, they are tricksters who can control the narrative of humanity, and don't act like the simulation has full control. I know that we have real bodies, in a word, in systems and cycles, but I wonder if we are in some astral realm, fooled believing we incarnated here. I can't explain it well in text, but all regions have the fundamental foundation. And what if the foundations have zero truth in real reality? There are a lot of holes in my theory, but I noticed a lot of conspiracy will build off of an older one, like how a prison planet builds off of Gnosticism. The only reason why they believe the only way out is death is near-death experience reports or channeling. I think channeling is dangerous and can't be trusted. And near-death experiences are designed for the living, not the dead, to influence the living beliefs on death. I think death could be a way out. Why is there no talk of leaving this realm without relying on death? I don't think my theory has much weight and filled holes because you can counter it easily with other schools of thought or facts.
How do we actually fight with imagination? What did the parasites look like?
When they mess with me, I try to eat them back. It works the majority of the time. Also, before bed, I build an aura shield around me and imagine a searing, painful light filling my room that will purify everything it touches. Then I claim that my room is my territory, and I'm a free and sovereign being. I have noticed that it works most of the time, but I can get a glimpse of them when waking, and sometimes they can interject themselves in my dreams. But doing these imaginary exercises decreased my attacks by 80% and can't harm me as much. What did the parasites look like? I saw many types. Some look like greys, and they all have different facial structures and body frames. Some had all black eyes with skinny heads, while some had iris like a goat with fat heads. Others looked like weird gremlin goblin creatures. I noticed these tend to lay on my chest, and will suck loosh from your mouth and have the ability to project illusions in front of their face. I saw this twice, and touched 2 of them before. Others are these weird ball-like things with identical spikes. They like to get over your mouth or hover above you. I see these types almost every day. They will dart once you spot them. I think they are a type of surveillance entity. Then I saw some that looked like typical demons, like the imps from Doom, or odd humanoids with demonic features, like a person with spikes and cracked red skin, or some ash golem. One thing I have noticed is that some are more powerful than others, and you can tell this by their vibe, and like to use weaker entities as bait or shields.
Prism magic is enveloping our planet Verdi. The prism magic is an advanced magic that creates confusion and our current level of math and geometry cannot fathom and thus cannot escape. It is neither 3D nor 2D nor flat nor globe, convex nor hollow. A infinitely prismatic tesseract that is heavily guarded. The enclave of the slave, you the monkey who first climbed up the tree of Eden, is tasked and best suited to mine in this poisonous land and is trapped in here, plants being our filter. To climb the tree means you can climb a hole you dug when mining. This is the best skill, and thus the monkeys are the first ones to use the vines to traverse the ravines. The reason plants used to bear poison and still has poison on many of its parts, inedible, is due to the poison that is apparent in our soil. Do you think those pebbles and rocks are not poisonous? Think again. There are all kinds of radon and possibly other radioactive isotopes in there. You are here forever, this mining enclave, enslaved, enraged. You will never.
Someone stated a theory that we were advanced back in the 1800 to 1900 period with huge structural buildings and statues all over major cities like Chicago, but then they just tore them down and now we have our shitty-looking cities of today. Was civilization greater back then and history was lied about to cover it up?
100%. More disturbing than this obvious thing is that our history also seems to be fluid. No one even had thoughts such as yours, OP, before about 10 years ago. How is this possible? Were we just dumb, blind, collectively suffering from amnesia, drunk on the abundance and great times of the 80s and 90s? Our perception has undoubtedly changed and continues to evolve. It truly is like we are all waking up. Well, some of us. The ones that are not seem to be even more ensnared by the reality spell. You know whom I'm talking about. The people you know can't wait to enter the metaverse. Any metaverse. Right after they get a Neuralink implant. It's speeding up as well.
The one thing that always messes with me is how do they discover ancient cities, roads, buildings, etc., all underground. For example, a few years ago they were renovating a city square, and due to the excavations they found a huge network of ancient Roman buildings right underneath our city. Or a random farmer was digging some stuff in his backyard, and suddenly he hit some carefully arranged stones. Turns out there's a literal ancient highway stretching for hundreds of kilometers, and as it so happened, part of it went through the farmer's land. Or someone digs something in a hillside, earth falls off, and it turns out there's actually a huge-ass coliseum or cathedral or other random building just sitting there, covered by masses of earth so that it looks like a hill. How does that happen? It's not that there are 1,000 years of invented history. More like history is much, much older than we're told. Civilization is much, much older. 2,000 years ago, we were still relatively close to where we're now. But think about 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. I think humanity is much older on this earth, or civilizations have existed for a much longer time than we're told, and so much has been transformed and forgotten. Say if there was an advanced civilization 60 million years ago, with cities and technology and whatnot, how much evidence we'd still have today?
The issue with history nowadays is nobody gives a crap about not pre-World War I, but even post-World War II, or even 30 years ago. I will tell you as far as I can from my family history. First of all, before the so-called economic boom of 1960 circa, most of Europe and I would guess the US too were rural. Our gramps lived on farms, or most of their livelihood came from there. Radios, let alone TVs, were a novelty and a luxury. MSM were locally printed newspapers. This is important to understand for at least 2 points. We're literally and physically living in Boomer's world, and the means of mass communication we enjoy today are very recent. Then the family stuff, in my gramp times. Late 18th, early 19th century. There weren't any internet, no passenger airplanes, nor work from home. There was one thing called Vaporetto, or steam-powered ship cruiser. My grandpa took one to Australia to go hunting rabbits to raise some money, and I still hold a physical receipt of that. Then you have World War I, which brought even more poverty in Europe, the US stock exchange fault, the Depression, and finally World War II. All these events acted as a giant blanket, meaning many people died, were displaced, and/or lost everything they owned. Prior to World War I, Europe was either monarchies, colonial empires, or both, while the Middle East was the Ottoman Empire, led by current Turks. This is mainstream history. There's nothing hidden about it. Just general people aren't interested nowadays. And the living memory was somewhat lost after the 60s because nobody wanted to be reminded of their humble rural origins. The great buildings and cities built in the US and around the world were made possible from the technology of those times, plus steel and concrete. They were made to impress. The problem with the US is that you'd rather tear down those structures and build new ones. In Europe, we tend to be more conservative with urban landscapes unless we bomb each other.
Let's say the whole free energy ancient tech thing is 100% fact. What did they use electricity energy for besides lights, heat, and radio communication? Does having free energy equal being able to build amazing structures with amazing detailed artwork? If they built some type of motor, I can't imagine they didn't just end up building a spaceship, as the main issue is energy once you build a machine, and if they did and left us and never came back, shouldn't we destroy everything they made? Some say they live inside Earth, but even then, wouldn't it be messed up to let all this happen to their own species when they have tech that could help? I don't understand what the ancients would use electricity or free energy for, so it doesn't make sense that they would invent a need for and be further advanced than us today. The weirdest part about history is how much what is taught in grade school diverges from reality. Honestly, it is pretty much no different from propaganda, even if you are just sticking to accepted history. It is exceptionally apparent if you look at the narratives told and how far they diverge from reality. This is mostly caused by intentional political battles at the state level, but it recasts history as just a bunch of accepted propaganda. If a historical narrative is politically unpopular enough, it would never gain academic acceptance, no matter how real it is. Now take events that you have lived through. If you go back and study them, you'll usually find that there have been significant revisions to the historical narrative to the point where your lived experiences seem false. Now, apply this to every event throughout history and compound it with the large amount of lost sources, and the entire story of human civilization rings hollow. History itself might as well be a pointless effort outside of the political realm and storytelling. This is the schizo thought I had this week.
For me, the Library of Alexandria story sounds fictional, like a myth. It's already based on the idea of Alexander the Great, who is already not much of a real figure as he's presented to us, at least. If anything, the plague years taught me that nothing actually of note even happens. We're becoming worse because the population is getting lost inside while browsing the web, whether it's out in public via smartphone or on their computer. We're being trained to think that video games are exciting, that social media is exciting, that having all this information in our pockets is impressive and important when it's anything but that. Since we enter school from a very young age, we are groomed to believe that information or technical knowledge is something important and impressive to have access to, while I don't think this is the case after all. I actually think that all this information is useless crap we don't need, and I would involve even the information we bring up in this very thread. Human beings can naturally build crazy buildings and technology by pure instinct. We are being systematically suppressed from that fact, though, via being immersed in this particular society construct. We're not in tune with ourselves and our innate imagination. It has been squashed in us since early on and offered countless distractions, so we can never regain it properly. Just walking outside feeling the sunlight is much more interesting than anything you can read in books or on the internet. We've been heavily psyoped.
How you feel about something is true. It's not arbitrary. The very idea of changing how you feel is to lie to your soul. It's good to try and envision a better world which makes you happy. That's true. But it also means that when negative stuff is thrust in your face, you shouldn't pretend it makes you happy either. It only sounds complicated, but really it couldn't be more simple. Just be honest with your soul. That's basically it. Never lie to your soul. But if you want another analogy, consider that you're standing in a fire. If you're in denial that the fire burns, are you ever going to leave? No, you have to accept the truth of the fire, that it burns, it sucks, and you want to leave. You have to accept the truth of this life, that it's garbage and you want out. But that doesn't mean to seek out the burning. If you keep going toward burning, you're never going to leave either. Just because you have to see the bad stuff for what it is doesn't mean you should go looking for it. You have to seek a better way, but also see things for what they are. I've come to realize that trying to escape has become itself a meme. Yes, there are burdens. But if you're already this far on the journey, it gets to a point. You get spiritually pushed into a corner which shows your highest destiny, and it transcends personal and subjective morality. It seems to break the barriers of the human social construct into a purely cosmic and chemical one. I don't know any other way of explaining it. I've also come to realize that explaining too much and trying to guide others on the path seems too dangerous. Look at it this way. If I explain one thing, you having your own senses will filter it out in ways that it'll lose its original meaning. It'll become perverted over time and naturally become corrupted like all other schools of thought. You just gotta do you. The secrecy of truth exists because it's so strangely interpersonal but so connected on a cosmic scale. It's mind-boggling. I wish you luck. I will take my own advice and learn to slowly stop speaking about it. And if you can understand my perspective, you can understand why it's not hidden for the sake of secrecy, perhaps by some. I just know that thankfully, the highest truths in occult knowledge are held by the good guys, and they are small and few. That I can promise. Just do you.